SpaceX is not just disrupting an industry, it's building a new empire. An empire built not on land, but on the invisible highways to orbit and beyond. With over 6,000 Starlink satellites dominating low Earth orbit and Falcon 9 rockets launching more payloads than every other nation combined, Elon Musk's company controls the critical path to humanity's future in space. This isn't just market dominance, it's a strategic choke point. They did not invent this strategy. 5 centuries ago, a tiny European kingdom perfected the art of owning a global supply chain, turning a dangerous trade route into an unchallengeable monopoly. By the end of this video, you will understand why SpaceX's strategy is not new and how the ancient blueprint for monopolizing a critical path to a new, valuable frontier has been flawlessly executed before. SpaceX is not just building rockets. It's building a Tollbooth. Think about it. They launch over 70% of all satellites into orbit. They hold multi-billion-dollar NASA contracts for lunar landings and crew transport, like the Artemis program. Their Starlink constellation is becoming the default internet backbone for entire regions such as Ukraine and remote villages. This is not just market dominance. This is control over the critical path to a new, valuable frontier. SpaceX is positioning itself as the indispensable gatekeeper to space, setting the terms for all who wish to access it. This isn't just short business, it's an ancient imperial strategy. 5 centuries ago, a tiny kingdom in Europe perfected the art of owning a global supply chain, turning a dangerous trade route into a global choke point. The mechanism then was called Carreira da India, Portugal's state-backed monopoly on the sea route to India. The mechanism now is SpaceX's near monopoly on access to orbit. But how did a small kingdom pull off such an audacious feat, and what does it tell us about the ultimate prize SpaceX is truly after? In the late 15th century, Europe craved spices from India and the East. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, they were more than flavorings. They were preservatives, medicines, and symbols of immense wealth. But the existing land routes were controlled by Arab and Venetian merchants, who levied heavy tolls and inflated prices. For Portugal, a small kingdom on the Atlantic fringe, this was an economic choke point. They needed a new way. The only option was the sea, around the treacherous southern tip of Africa. Vasco da Gama's pioneering voyage in 1497-1499 was an epic of survival. More than half of his crew died. His ships were battered. But he found the route. This wasn't just a journey. It was the discovery of a new critical path, one so difficult and dangerous that few could replicate it. This is where the monopoly began. How did a tiny kingdom like Portugal manage to own an entire ocean? Just like space today, the ocean was a new, untamed frontier. The route itself was the bottleneck. SpaceX, with its reusable rockets and rapid launch cadence, has done the same for orbital access. They have tamed the frontier's entry point, making it economically viable for themselves and incredibly difficult for anyone else to compete. Just look at the recent ULA Vulcan Cantor launch. A competitor which still can't match SpaceX's launch cadence of over 90 missions in 2023. Portugal did not just discover the route, they enforced their ownership. This was the Carreira da India, the India run. It wasn't just a shipping lane, it was a tightly controlled, state-backed logistical operation. The Portuguese established a network of fortified trading posts and naval bases across Africa and Asia. Goa in India, Malacca in modern-day Malaysia, and Hormuz at the mouth of the Persian Gulf. These were not just forts. They were strategic points controlling vital sea lanes. From these bases, they issued Cartazes, official licenses that any ship in the West Indian Ocean had to purchase from Portugal to legally trade. Without a Cartaz, your ship was considered piratical, subject to confiscation or sinking. This kind of control over access points and necessary permits echoes the current debate around SpaceX Starlink terminals, which are required for access to their satellite internet and effectively dictate who can connect in remote areas like those served by Starlink in Ukraine. Their powerful carracks, large sailing warships, bristling with cannons, patrolled the seas, deterring rivals and brutally enforcing their exclusive rights. This was not free trade. It was a global supply chain monopoly, backed by military might and clear threat of force. Think of SpaceX vertical integration. They control launch sites, ground stations, and even the satellites themselves. Starlink is not just internet. It's a global network of infrastructure, from the satellites to the user terminals. This allows SpaceX to set the terms for access. Much like Portugal's forts and Cartazes, they are building the infrastructure for all future space activity, from communication to lunar bases, as seen with their recent contract for NASA's Artemis program, human landing system. The Carreira da India funneled unimaginable wealth into Lisbon. Spices arrived in vast quantities, bypassing the old land routes and allowing Portugal to set the prices for an entire continent. They weren't just selling spices, they were taxing every stage of the supply chain. A single voyage could yield profits of 1,000% or more, transforming the kingdom's treasury. This immense capital funded further exploration, military expansion, and cemented Portugal's status as a world power. Lisbon became Europe's richest city, a global hub where cultures and commodities converged. The Portuguese even levied tolls on local Asian trade, extracting value even from commerce that wasn't directly Portuguese. The cost of bypassing this monopoly was prohibitive, often leading to conflict or economic ruin for competitors. What happens when you control the only way to a new frontier? For SpaceX, this control means setting the prices for satellite launches, dictating the terms for private space missions, and shaping the very economics of the burgeoning internet service, now providing connectivity to millions. SpaceX controls not just the satellites, but the ground stations, the launch vehicles, and the service itself. Every satellite launched, every NASA contract, every Starlink subscription, SpaceX extracts value at every step. They effectively levy a toll on access to orbit, just as Portugal taxed the Indian Ocean. This is why analysts project SpaceX valuation could exceed $200 billion in the coming years, driven by these diverse revenue streams. Portugal's monopoly on the Carreira da India was incredibly lucrative, but it wasn't invulnerable. Other European powers, the Dutch, the English, the French, eventually challenged it. They poured resources into developing their own faster ships, meticulously mapping their own routes, and building powerful navies to protect their interests. The Dutch East India Company, for instance, became a formidable rival, eventually wresting control of key spice islands and trade routes in the 17th century. Piracy became a constant threat, and the sheer cost of maintaining a global empire spread thin across vast oceans eventually took its toll. Naval battles erupted, and over time, Portugal's exclusive control eroded. While the Carreira remained vital, it faced increasing competition. Can any monopoly truly last forever? SpaceX faces its own emerging competitors. Blue Origin, backed by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, is investing billions into its New Glenn rocket and lunar lander programs. The joint venture of Boeing and Lockheed Martin continues to launch critical payloads, And China's rapidly advancing space program, with its Long March rockets and Tiangong space station, is a formidable state-backed rival, aiming for its own space dominance. Antitrust concerns are beginning to surface in the US and Europe, and geopolitical rivalries could complicate their global ambitions. However, SpaceX has built a massive head start, driven by innovation and a relentless focus on reducing costs. They have established the dominant position, making the path to direct competition steep and expensive for rivals. For instance, in 2023, SpaceX launched 96 orbital missions, while its closest US competitor ULA launched only 3. The Carreira to India wasn't just about ships and spices. It was about owning the critical path to a new, valuable frontier. It was about controlling the global logistics network, setting the terms of trade, and extracting immense value. This wasn't really a story about ancient ships or modern rockets. It was a story about owning the critical path. And whenever that mechanism appears, the same pattern tends to follow. SpaceX is executing the same blueprint, but on a cosmic scale. Their vision isn't just about launching rockets. It's about controlling the entire space ecosystem. From the launch vehicles that take us there, to the communication networks that connects us, to the future infrastructure for lunar bases and Martian colonies. The company that controls the route to the stars controls the terms of humanity's expansion. This isn't theoretical, it's happening.